Hi y'all, Vicki Stegall here for 52 Inspirations 2017. I am getting ready to put number 3 in the shop, and I just thought I'd give a quick little tutorial or show you a few different ways to use it. You can see the preview for it here. It is a set of textured papers, and you can either use them as is for your backgrounds, or you can use them to add texture and dimension and just that little something extra, that little pop, if you will, to your layouts, to other papers from other kits, to pictures. You can even use these on elements like a flower to grunge things up a little bit. So anyway, let's get started. The items that I'm going to be using are, of course, the 52 Inspirations 2017 number 3 papers, and Second Chance number 6 Christmas Designed by Soko. I can't seem to get enough of this template pack. The one that I'm going to be using today is this one up here in this corner, and I will show you how I use that in just a minute. And you can see one of the projects that we're going to do. There was the picture of me. And now I have completely lost my window, so let me see if I can find the other. Here we go. I'm going to be using some papers from 52 Inspirations 2016, number 21. So anyway, now let's get started, and we'll just go with whichever one happens to pop up first in my window. Alright, so we've got one of the papers from 2016, number 21, and I wanted to show you this on kind of just a really basic scrapbook paper. It doesn't have too much texture. It's got a little bit of creases and folds here, but not much texture otherwise. So let me go ahead and bring up the textures. And I'm just going to grab this really grungy one here and drag it in. And over here we're going to play with our blend modes. And how I like to go through blend modes when I'm just playing around is, instead of having to click each one and look at how it goes and see how it changes things, I like to just arrow through them. So if you hold down your Shift key and do the right bracket, the right plus sign, whoops, which is also going to be, it's the plus equal key on your keyboard. So anyway, it's going to be Shift plus, and you can see that the blend modes are changing as I go through. And you can just kind of arrow through and see what you like, and some will work and some won't. So most of these, that one looks okay. It kind of looks like maybe we painted over the top with some gesso. But there was an effect a few back that I like a little bit better. So just to quickly arrow through, and then I'll show you the ones that I actually think work pretty well. So we're here on Darken and Multiply. I like Multiply because it gives you a nice grungy effect. Color Burn, you're going to have to zoom in to see what it does here. But essentially, it just darkens the color. And I like that for a subtle effect. Let me zoom back out. And then Linear Burn is just kind of a darker version of the Multiply. And then Lighten looks like you've painted over something there. So anyway, that's how you can use it on just your basic paper. And I'm going to go ahead and close that one. No, we're not going to save it. This one here is actually two separate textures, but it also comes in a layered PSD. So what I'm going to do with this one is show you how I work with, or how I played around with my word papers that were released last week. So I'm just going to bring in 217 here, or 2017. Apparently my brain is not working that well today. Anyway, so as you can see here, this is your layered file. It comes with the worn old paper background here, which is kind of an antique-y. and then the texture, and then you're going to clip your paper here. So go ahead and clip that to that layer, and that is just for holding down the Alt key and clicking between the layers. And you can see how that changes the basic appearance, and I'm going to zoom in here in a second so you can see exactly what it does. And I really like that this particular one just sort of gives you that little old antique-y, barely grunged up effect. And it's pretty subtle, but it's a nice texture. So let's close that one out. I'm not going to save it. And here's how you can change a picture. Now, I'd like to point out here that this item is actually paper texture number 2, which does not come in black. But let me show you what I did here. So we're going to open up those textured papers again. I'm going to take number 2 and drop it on. Now my picture is smaller, of course, than a normal canvas, so I'm just going to resize this out to a little bit bigger, just so it covers the whole picture. And you can see it's less than it's not 100% because that is smaller than a normal 12 by 12 canvas. And so let me turn off these other two, and you can use the texture this way over the picture, but I kind of didn't, I didn't want the grunginess to darken up my face. And so what I've done is I just go up here and I change the layer. I go ahead and rasterize it so that it's no longer a smart object. When you drop your items on top of each other from File Manager, you're going to end up with a smart object, which is great for resizing because you don't lose any detail when you resize a smart object, but you can't really do anything else to that item. So it is no longer a smart object, so I am just going to invert the color and make it black. And now you'll see that as soon as we get into things like lighten and screen, I really like what it's doing with the texture of my clothing. It's adding just a little bit of texture to my face without being too distracting, and it's just kind of a subtle effect. So I'm going to leave that one there, and then I'm also using, let's see which item this one is. This one is number 3, so let me pull. Oh, I guess I don't need to pull it back in, but you can see that I pulled in another layer, and when I pull it in, it's going to look like this. That's what number 3 looks like. So I want to be able to actually see myself, and again, I'm getting that kind of grungy look on my face that I'm not really wanting. It looks pretty neat up here in the background around me, so you could absolutely do a layer mask and kind of white it out over my face so that it is only showing that texture in the background. That would be pretty cool. But I actually want to lighten up my photo a little bit. So I'm going to just arrow through until I see the effect that I want. And it's going to end up being overlay or soft light. And I kind of like overlay better. It's a little bit edgier, I think. It kind of makes the colors pop a little more, but it's a little too dark, or too white, I should say. So I'm going to lighten it up just a little bit, and there we go. Now I have an awesome photo treatment that's pretty quick and easy and fun to play with. So here is what it looks like without anything, which is a fine photo. It looks a little, actually a little bit dark to me, but it would certainly be just fine used as is. But I think it looks a little bit cooler like that. So, all right, and I'm not going to save that one either. This one is just, some of the textures come in both PNG and JPEG format. And so this one, number 3, or no, that's not number 3. What is it? It's going to be texture number 5, is actually a PNG format. And so you can't really tell much what it is when you first open it. But if you put a color behind it, you can make your own solid papers. Let me zoom out a little bit. This one's pretty subtle. I've got it set on linear burn for this one. But if you go to lighten, you've got a whole different effect there. So this one's neat. It's got a neat kind of crackle effect to it. But so you can go from a really light effect to something more dramatic. So, and that's just by playing with your blend modes. We've gone from linear burn to lighten, and you can see the different effects you get. So we'll go ahead and close that one out. And this one here is just showing that first grungy texture one again, set to linear burn, combined with another of the textures, texture number 3, set to multiply. And this gives us a really nice, really grungy effect on this fairly busy paper. You can again play with your blend modes, and this one you get kind of looks like you've painted over this with some gesso and wiped it back a bit, so maybe it looks a little less busy and easier for some people to work with, but you've still got your hints of color and texture and design behind it. That's on the lighten blend mode. And if you just keep going through, so you can see some don't work at all, so you just go skip right past those. Overlay kind of lightens things up a little bit. I kind of like soft light combined with that grunge. And you can even go through and play with this first layer, and I actually kind of like how this now turns this into basically a whitewashed paper with a little subtle hint. Where everything on this paper is black, it will show the color beneath when you do that. So on lighten, it is pulling out only those, and where everything was white, it blanks it out and you can't see it. I hope that made sense. So, okay, and here we are. I have been working on my layout for the January challenge for 52 inspirations. Today is January 30th, so I am cutting it close. But anyway, hopefully I will actually get it finished and in the forum in the gallery. But you can see here that I have used Soko's template and just my texture papers really and some word art to make this. And this paper here, I actually have it's texture number 6. And I didn't want it quite as strong as it is normally, so all I did was adjust the opacity here. And you can do that. You can use the slider here by holding your mouse down and just going back and forth. Here's what the paper looks like at 100%. And that was just a little bit too much, so I took it down to around 50%, I think it was roughly, just so that it's a pretty subtle effect back there. And then on Soko's template, she always uses the best colors on her items. She just really has a great eye for that. So since this one is really about the journaling rather than a photo, I am just using her items or her circles here, and I have clipped the texture papers to it. So this one is number 4, and I've got it set to soft light 50%, and I've just used the clipping mask function, which is again Alt and clicking. And you can see if I change this texture to normal and back to 100%, that you can see what the texture was there. But what was that? Overlay and 50%. And you can see it just gives a nice subtle little texture to that. Looks like it was an actual paper instead of a template piece. Same thing here. For this one, I used number 5 again, and I've just got it set to soft light. And I will go ahead and do the texture for these papers. These outlines that you can see on these circles and around AIM are actually for another project that I will be teaching in April, which hopefully I'll be able to reveal more about soon. But I'm excited about that opportunity to teach kind of a neat little technique on how to emphasize things like this and get this really natural effect. Looks like you've circled it with a pen, and you have that, because I don't know about you, but I can't draw a perfect circle or a perfect box. So anyway, you'll learn more about that in April. So really, this is just a not so quick now video showing you how to use these texture papers. I hope that you will experiment and play and just have a great time and enjoy the papers. And remember, you can join 52 Inspirations anytime during the year, and you can actually, even after the year's over, you can buy the whole year in one go. But it's always better to, in my opinion, subscribe early so that you can have that excitement of getting a new kit each and every week. And we will see you next week. And again, this is Vicki Stegall for oscraps.com. Thanks. Bye-bye.